we bring you the best facts in town.
In town.
I'm Kylie.
I'm Jamie.
And I never know what to say after we tell you our names.
We are here. We are drinking wine and we're having a good time.
Ooh. Kind of rhymes. Ooh. Hey y'all, how's it going? Like I'm waiting for them to answer. Tell me how you doing.
How are you doing?
Oh, good? Okay, I'm really glad for you. Hopefully they didn't say, like, terrible.
I can't help you with that. I'm not a licensed therapist.
Yeah, if you're struggling, please go to therapy. Love you. Okay. Jamie, I have to tell you something.
Oh, God.
I had to call the cops on Friday night, 2 nights ago.
Why?
I was at my parents' house, and we were chilling outside. Like, I was with my cousin, like, my sister, and my fiance, and, like, we were all just chilling on the deck.
Yeah.
And then we hear, a lady screaming, "Help me," like, multiple times.
Oh, my God.
And so we instantly call the cops.
Yeah.
And so I'm on the phone with the cops, and I'm like, I don't really have a lot of information, but I heard a woman screaming, "Help me." And then, like, Basil, that's my fiance, for those of you who don't know, he, like, ran out to the front yard to see what he could see out there.
Yeah.
And we were in the backyard, like, I was standing on a chair because we could see it through the fence, kind of.
Yeah.
And towards the street. And so they were like, "Can you describe the woman?" I'm like, "No, we don't see her. We only hear her." But then we heard him, like, driving by. Like, he, like, backed up the car because it sounded like she was running.
Yeah.
And he was like, "Get in the car. Your son wants to talk to you." And Basil said, like, right before that happened, he was in the front yard and she came up to the street and he asked if she was okay. And she said, "Yeah." And she was, like confused why he was asking her.
What?
She was like, "Yeah, what are you doing?" Even though she just screamed, "Help me." Yeah, so then, but I didn't know that part. So I was just telling the cop, like, "Oh, he just said that he wants her to get in the car." And she said no. And then it sounded like she was running all the way up the hill at the street next to us. And then I heard her saying, "Let go of me. Leave me alone." And so I was just telling the cop all of this. But, like, I didn't have a description of the car. I didn't have a description of the girl. Mm-hmm. So I was like, "I'm sorry, I don't have a lot of information. But it sounds like she's, like, really trying to get away from him." Mm-hmm. So she's still screaming for help, even though he, like, asked her if she's okay. And, like, she had a perfect opportunity to be like, "Help me," because he was out of sight.
Yeah.
So it's just really weird. But then we heard the car, like, zoom off. And that was the end of it.
Oh, my God.
By the time the cop got there, we were like, they're gone. But that happened.
Did you get a look at the car?
Yeah, Basil got a picture of it, but it's really blurry. Like, you don't see the license plate. So they were just like, I guess we'll drive around for a bit. But, like, I don't know if they were just, like, on drugs or what, but...
Probably.
Anyway, that was my fun story of the weekend.
Oh, my God. That sounds like chaos.
And it happened at midnight.
What were you doing up at midnight?
We were just talking. And then we hear, "Help me!" And we were like, there's no way that's, like, a kid right now. Like, or it's not a joke. Like, it sounded very intense.
Good Lord.
Especially because we heard her running up a hill. We heard the car... Like, we heard the car door slam, and then they drove away. Like, that, it didn't sound like a good situation, but also, like, she said she didn't need help when she had an opportunity to be like, call the cops.
Yeah.
Because he wasn't near her. So I don't know what is going on.
It might be a toxic relationship to where you want to get away, but, like, you also don't want to. Mm-hmm. I don't know.
She could also be on, like, meth, and he could be just, like, trying to get her to not do anything dangerous, you know? Like, I don't know, but we called the cops. I guess it's better than being a bystander.
Yeah.
When someone says, "Help me,"
you help them.
Right.
I don't know what it is, but, like, our city is just... I've been seeing, like, on, like, the news, like, articles and media and stuff like that, all this shit that's going on with just, like, shootout, like, down at, like, the gas station on such and such street. And I'm like,
crazy.
What the fuck is going on?
I don't know. It's wild. But that's our state, and we're going to talk about our state today.
Oh, yeah. It's going to be absolutely... It's chaos. And you never really think about it, just, like... Because right now it's a very, like, sticky situation with the military over in Afghanistan.
Yes.
And I'm going to be talking about the military's role in today's. So they are the ones who, like, that's where it escalated to this situation. Uh-huh. But, so any other crazy stuff that...
I mean, no, that was just my crazy story of the weekend. Like...
Oh, my gosh.
I feel like the world might want to know about it because... I don't know. It's something that doesn't happen every day.
I know. It's hard to tell, too, between, like, for, like, gunshots. I never know if they're fireworks or gunshots because there's so many fireworks that go off throughout the year. Like, it's crazy. Like, it could be freaking October and there's firecrackers going off. Like, we heard some. We were down in Pueblo last night, and we decided, that's south of the Springs, but we decided after we went to the small racetrack to watch stock car racing. Yeah. Because we're like that. That's the one that your dad took us to.
Oh, yeah, that one was fun.
Yeah, gosh. But the stock cars were the more aggressive ones, and I loved watching that. But then we decided to go to the drive-in, the only drive-in I think we have here in Colorado anymore.
The drive-in, yeah.
But we kind of, like, snuck around the corner to watch it for free for a little bit. And firecracker, people were just, like, those little snap poppers. We just kept hearing those going off, and I was just like... Oh,
and that place is known for shooting, so it's not a good place to hear it.
Yeah, like, there's actually some nice parts of Pueblo, which I was really surprised. I think it's more on, like, the west side, but the drive-in was, like, popping, though. There was a lot of people. Yeah. Like, in the screen that we were going to see, the dude was like, yeah, there's, like, 191 cars, and we're like, what?
Dang.
That's a lot of cars.
Yeah, wow. So, all right, let's jump in.
Yes, let's jump in. So, today, I am covering the Ludlow Massacre.
I like your writing on the title there.
Which one?
The title, Ludlow Massacre.
Oh, thank you. You can see where a little smudges because of my handwriting. I'm left-handed, and so it wasn't even 5 minutes into, like, a minute into writing, and I already had, like, smudges on my hand. Oh. Normally, I use pencil, but I couldn't find a pencil, so I was like,
you're like,
here we go.
Yeah.
But at least it wasn't one of those, like, really inky pens that I like.
Inky.
Yeah, because, you know, there's so many different, like, the ballpoint kind of, like...
Mm-hmm. I know what you mean.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, those are nice pens, but they are very wet.
Yes, they are. And on that note, the Ludlow Massacre.
Yes. So, did you learn about this in school?
I don't know if I learned about it in school or if I just learned about it on my own time.
I did not learn about it in school. I was very surprised when I dug a little deeper into this.
I don't think I ever did.
So, this place is no longer like a town. It's a ghost town. Mm-hmm. We have so many of those here in Colorado.
Oh, yeah.
It's crazy because Colorado is a very big, like, mining industry. There's a lot of gold, but there's also a lot of coal. I'm going to be talking about the coal industry today, but I am going to mention just a few of the gold. But I decided to choose this topic just because I did part of my senior thesis in college on this. I decided to do the coal wars in the United States and how that really affected in the push into labor movements. Yeah. And I looked at a lot of... I didn't even cover California because I didn't give a shit. I did Colorado because I was here and I could do more research. Yeah. But then COVID hit, so I couldn't go down because there's an archive on Ludlow, in Pueblo. But I could not go because it was closed because of COVID during my research. So I was really disappointed. And then life gets chaotic, so I couldn't go this time around. But I don't even care if we have to do this in a couple years, like down the road, and we're just doing revamps on some. Like, I would love to do a revamp and actually go down to the archives and
that would be cool.
Because newspapers are the best. Because I looked at a lot of newspapers when I was covering West Virginia and their coal wars. Like, I would love to cover them too because they're so influential into the labor movements for unions. Yeah. And it's crazy. But this one really took a toll for the labor movement because I'm just going to say it right now, it was not successful. Mm-hmm. But it also shows how much someone will go, how far they will go to get what they want because they don't want to live in, like, shitty situations, which we're seeing right now. Like, there are so many people who don't want to work those minimum wage jobs. Like, as we're seeing around town, there's now hiring signs in every single industry window.
Right.
Like, it's crazy.
It's everywhere, yeah.
But, like, that's kind of how it was for there, is that they were not so much as, like, now hiring, but they were realizing, like, I don't want to work like this.
Yeah.
So, Ludlow Massacre, crazy. Let's jump into it.
Let's do it.
I always like to add like little captions and like topics for everything.
I love it.
Because it gives me, because I can't write my notes out like word for word like some people do. I don't get that. I feel like
gives you like organization.
Yeah, because even with writing papers, I couldn't do it, or doing presentations.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I loved about bullet points, because then you can go a little bit further between each bullet point.
Yeah.
So here's an introduction. So, mining has been going on for thousands of years, as we have seen just through, like, how do you think people get, like, the gold, the emeralds, the diamonds? Like, mining has been going on for so long, but we really saw a boom of the commercial use for it here in the United States around kind of the, as early as Virginia.
Yeah.
As we can see. But they wanted gold that's when they were like really like money hungry, wanting gold. And then if you ever watch Pocahontas, they're like, we have corn. It's like, that's not the gold we want. Crazy. So there are so many mining states. But when people think of just the mining industry, a lot of people think of the gold rush in California, because that's where a lot of people migrated from all over the United States. They were like, this is where we gotta be.
Yes.
Little did they know that there was mining everywhere going on. Some of the highly influential ones are Virginia, West Virginia. You have South Dakota, Wyoming, here in Colorado.
Yeah.
Even Utah, Arizona, New Mexico. Literally the whole West Coast. Is so, like, the Midwest West is just mining. It's huge. Like, I've been to an old ghost town that's like still, it's like commercialized and everything. Like, it's huge down in like Mesa area in Arizona. Love it. It's great. Ghost Adventures went there.
Oh, that's
I was like, oh, this is so fun. But supposedly it's haunted.
Oh.
I can't remember what it's called, but if you've ever seen that episode of Ghost Adventures of them near Mesa, Arizona by the Superstition Mountains, I've been there. But nice. I can't remember the name. I'm not good at names, just so you know. But so this I didn't know Alaska too was really big on mining.
Oh, I had no idea about that. That's interesting.
Yeah, that's crazy. So, influential mining towns, we can see them being more popular around the 1859, especially here in Colorado. That's where we saw a big boom. They called it here the Colorado Gold Rush, or the Pikes Peak Gold Rush, because we saw a lot of that. I think one of the closest ones that we have here is Cripple Creek.
Yeah.
It is. They still do mining out there. Like, you can still, like, visit some of the mines or do, like, tours and stuff. But it's mostly a gambling.
Yeah.
Most that are still, like, up and going are, like, gambling towns. Like,
right.
I think Idaho Springs, I don't think they really have gambling, but it's kind of like a passerby town on your way to, like,
there's not a lot in it.
Park and stuff. But they're still, like, fun, because going through Idaho Springs, because we passed by there when we went up to Granby last weekend, and they literally just had the mine on the side of the road almost.
Oh, yeah.
It's just right there, and the town is kind of submerged into it, like every single town. Ludlow is in southern Colorado, kind of like, it's past Pueblo. It's near, like, Trinidad, and that becomes pretty important into this. But I wanted to go to Ludlow. It's about 2 hours away from where we are, but James was like, it's not that great.
You were trying to go, like, last week.
Yeah, and he was like, no, there's nothing there anymore except, like, a few old buildings and then a memorial.
Yeah.
He's like, it's literally a ghost town. And I was like, I know.
You're like, I don't care. I still want to go.
I know. And he was like, we're not driving 2 hours. And I'm like, fine. I guess I'll look at pictures.
Yeah.
But I believe he stopped there on a trip with one of his boys or something like that. And I was just like, oh, I still want to go one day. We're heading towards Trinidad.
Yep.
But Trinidad was a big place too for mining. But this one was pretty big. So a lot of the gold towns that we see here in Colorado, now I'm kind of like narrowing the mining towns. Mm-hmm. So here in Colorado, gold towns included Central City, Breckenridge, huge, and just like the ski. It's one of those ski towns now. It's really pretty.
Very touristy.
Oh, yeah. You have Idaho Springs. You have Leadville.
I love Leadville.
I believe that's also gold and coal.
Yes.
Yeah.
I went there on a trip with my friends a couple years ago. It's so fun. They have just a cute little downtown area. They have like an opera house.
They always do.
Yeah. They have saloons that you can still see. Mm-hmm. So fun.
Then you have Summitville, Telluride, Cripple Creek, and then Victor, which is like a 5-minute drive from Cripple Creek. Mm-hmm. And I want to cover they even had their own labor war, pretty much. Cold War, Gold War, whatever. A few years earlier, before the Ludlow Massacre, which became very influential in them doing the strike that they did. But so I want to cover theirs because there was so much has happened in Cripple Creek. It blows my mind.
It's a crazy place.
It really is. I don't like to gamble, so I try to stay as far as I can away from there. I also just want to make note before I completely forget is that a lot of my research that I got from today is from the Ludlow Massacre Class Warfare and Historical Memory in Southern Colorado. It's an article that you can read yourself. Very informative. It's by Mark Walker. And it's more of just like a informative article.
Yeah.
Something smells really hot.
Oh, it does.
Oh, James is probably making something.
Yeah, it sounded like he's cooking.
But it smells kind of good. Ugh. Sorry. But so that was like a huge research that I used, especially in my writing.
Yeah.
For my thesis, but I recommend that you try to look for just actual articles because those are like news articles because those were so helpful because this got a national recognition.
Oh yeah, this was
like
huge.
Nationwide, yeah. So now I can finally put this away. So back on track. Coal towns that were very huge here was Trinidad, Walsenburg, Crested Butte, which I didn't really know, so the Gunnison County, and then Ludlow.
Okay.
So I'm guessing kind of more south and then west.
Yeah.
Kind of like in that. But so just the rush of the metals and just people discovering these towns and whatnot attracted so many people. Because they thought that they could make a lot of money off of it because you get paid by the amount that you find.
Yeah.
And that's why a lot of people were attracted to California.
Makes sense.
They thought, well, I found gold. Well, now I can sell it and make a lot of money. Little did they know that if you're working for a company, they're going to want that cut too.
Yeah.
So it's not, you're not getting as much as you think you will.
Just it's a ripoff.
And you're risking your life for it too, and you're risking black lung.
Ugh, not worth it.
No.
10 out of 10 would not recommend.
No, because the last few years of your life, you're just coughing and hacking. Mm-hmm. All of that built up in your lungs, and it's just, you're done.
Yeah.
It's done. So, now, this rapid growth, because all of those cities used to have really high populations that I have talked about, but this would cause a very big downfall in the cities later on because you have so much buildup, you have so much people trying to move there and trying to build that you know that there's going to be a downfall at one point. And this can either be because the head operators are going to take advantage of it, or it's just people, or there's so many people that the amount of just how much they're taking out of just these resources are just going to be depleted.
Yeah.
And so that's what happened to a lot of them. And so a lot of these towns are just riding on what they have now, and a lot of them are, to be honest, ski towns.
Yeah.
Like Breckenridge, even Aspen or whatnot. Like, they're all just popular for that tourist attraction.
Mm-hmm.
Not so much of their mining history.
Makes sense.
Yeah. My next title is called Hello Ludlow.
I like that you're giving us all the titles.
I can't help it.
An introduction.
Introduction. All right, so Ludlow is about 16.7 miles north of Trinidad, Colorado. So they're pretty close. This becomes important for some of the people. It's still far.
Yeah.
And especially in this time of 1913, 1914, that's a big chunk of space. And
oh, yeah.
Cars aren't a thing still. Because I don't think cars didn't really start to be developed for public use until the 1920s.
Right.
Something like that, 1910s, 1920s. It wasn't as common still.
Yeah. Not everybody had them.
Exactly. They're expensive. They're still expensive. So, now, Ludlow was a booming coal mine. Like, there was at one point, for the amount of miners that were in this story, there's about 1,200 women, men, and children that lived into the community of the mining company that is there. Mm-hmm. And there's more people that lived there, but this was a big chunk of the people who worked for the mining company. I believe there were a lot more people who were working in the stores as doctors and stuff like that. So that was the estimate that I got it. It was kind of like different. Some said it was like 12,000, and I was like, really? I don't know.
So 1,200 and 12,000?
Yeah, I don't know if that was like a typo
People just
on
didn't
their
know
end.
where the comma went.
I don't know. So, yeah, so that was, that population was in 1913.
Okay.
So this probably, I think after this probably decreased tremendously.
Yeah.
And that was probably when they started to see a fall in the population, and then it became more of just, especially the damage that was done, I believe it became more of just like a ghost town after.
Yeah, makes sense.
In the next like 50 years.
Okay.
But, so this mine that was controlled here was owned, eventually, I'll get into that, by the Rockefeller family. And it was called the Colorado Fuel and Iron Company.
Oh.
So it was a CF&I.
Okay.
That's its abbreviation. So, jumping into this company that pretty much owned Ludlow. Not really, but that was like the company running this entire town.
Yeah.
This mining company. So it was developed in 1880. It was originally called, you had the Colorado Coal and Iron Company. It merged in with the Colorado Fuel Company. So these two rival companies officially just merged together, and this was completed in 1892. So this became just a whole thing.
Interesting.
Yeah, just one big mining company, and it was originally controlled by John Osgood until 1903, when John D. Rockefeller Sr. decided to buy it. So I'm guessing the Rockefeller, you think of just like the huge family of Rockefeller. I don't know.
Rich people, I guess.
Rich people. There's Rockefeller for something important, and I can't remember what it is. Mm-hmm. Is it a dancing group? No, that's the Rockettes.
Rockettes. But there is something. Rockefeller.
Is it stadium? Is it a
yes,
stadium?
it is a stadium.
Okay, that's probably what I thought of then.
Who plays there?
I have no idea. So it was his control for the Rockefeller family would stay in control until about the 1940s. I'm guessing this is when it was kind of just like, people are getting a little tired of it.
Yeah. And
kind of had its downfall. Now this company would become nationwide. Like they had mines in, I believe, Virginia, West Virginia, Wyoming, Utah. They were all over the United States. So they were making lots of money.
Okay.
And Colorado was just one that they just had enough. And so there were thousands of employees that were working for the company, not including, this is more than just Colorado. So they had the same kind of work ethic and whatnot, or what they provided for everybody, the same as Colorado. So you can tell that this would become influential for the company in all the different states of just like what they wanted.
Okay.
For here. So this, they did not treat their people right. It was they promised work to the mines, and this brought immigrants. So this
Makes
included, so this brought immigrants from all over. Like you had Italians, Slovenians, Croatians, Mexicans, Germans, Greeks. You had African Americans. There was just...
Everyone was coming there.
Yeah, because they promised work to anyone because that's what they wanted. And they were the state's largest private employer.
Dang.
Because their company was so massive. And then they were giving jobs to pretty much anyone. They're like, hey, you want to come work for this mine? And they're like, yeah, like I'm struggling here as a immigrant, or even as what's it called? Why can't I think of it?
Okay, while you're thinking, the Rockefeller Center is in New York City.
Oh shit, that's right.
Yeah, so they have like concerts and things.
Okay. Not migrants.
I think that's where they do like the parades.
That's
why it's familiar.
Yeah. Okay. I wonder if I think it's the same family.
Probably, yeah.
I don't give two shits about it. But
did you think of what you were trying to think of?
The less populated, or like a different color of skin.
The minorities?
Minorities. Oh my god, what is wrong with me? I can already tell I'm gonna have Alzheimer's.
Let's hope not, because that would
dementia runs in my family, so we'll see.
Same.
I feel like it runs in everybody's family at this point.
I think it's just being old.
Honestly. We're not that old.
No, I mean like dementia. You get it when you're old.
Yeah. Okay. So, minorities. So they were like, we're minorities. We will take this job. Like, this is great. And they're like, awesome. So we'll give you company houses. You have to shop at like our supply company store, which you would sell your metals there too to get like your money.
Yeah.
You'll be educated in the company schools, and then you'll be treated by the company doctor. So everything was run by the company.
Okay.
So you could not go outside of it pretty much to do anything. Like it was strictly like you have to stay in this bubble.
Okay.
That was a first red flag.
Dang.
Yeah, because that was like part of the rules that got them really pissed, was that like you cannot sell your coal to anybody else.
Damn.
Yeah, they're like, it has to be strictly here, and that caused a problem because they're like, well, are you playing me then? Like, what are you doing?
Nah.
Yeah, so my next tagline, how bad could it be? So, even they provided everything, for the miners, but it just wasn't enough. They were underpaid. So with coal mining, or even just mining at this time, I believe it's changed now, they were paid by the ton of coal that you provide. Mm-hmm. That's how much you would get paid.
Okay.
And it wasn't hourly.
Oh, dang. So they were how much you sold?
Yeah.
Oof.
So they were severely underpaid, and this would cause like a lot of issues, because then like how are you going to be able to provide for your family, because a lot of them had a bunch of kids. And it was also, you have to think of mining, it is very dangerous. It's a very dangerous job, because you've heard stories, like we've all heard stories of just miners being trapped and suffocated because a lot of the bearings, especially at this mine, were not safe.
Yeah.
Like how they pretty much use wood planks to prop up like the holes in the tunnels could easily fall down. They were very flimsy. They were not sturdy enough for these miners to be continuously digging through to get the coal out. And this became very dangerous. So many lives were lost. And then especially it still happens to this day that a lot of times they're just buried deep. Because I believe there was another one here in Colorado or somewhere that I've heard that there were like these miners that were just buried for days.
Oh man.
Yeah, and a lot of them lost their lives.
That's
and
horrible.
It's a very dangerous job, and it's not only of just you may lose a limb or two.
Yeah.
Because that happens, especially in the elevator shafts.
Right.
But you will also eventually, especially working in the coal mines, get the black lung, which was huge. Like, do you remember reading Rocket Boys?
Yes.
Yeah, that was his dad's job.
Yeah,
The main character.
I remember that, yeah.
His dad was a coal miner, and I believe he eventually got black lung.
I think so, at the end or whatever.
Yeah, because that was huge, because they would be breathing in
in
all of that every
chemicals
single day.
and,
Yeah.
Ugh.
And it would just, I think they called it that because your lungs would look so gross.
Because they literally turn black.
Yeah, and it
crazy.
was awful. So that was what these miners were going through. And they had the doctors, but I don't think the doctors were doing much because they were just company doctors. So they were like, oh, yeah, I guess you're doing fine. Like, let's move on.
Oh, jeez.
But because that's what a lot of them wanted in their fight was to go to their own doctor, to their own provider, and they didn't want that. Mm-hmm. And so I'm like, that's kind of sketchy. So I'm pretty sure they were like having the doctors give them false I'm not saying that it's true, but maybe the doctors were giving them false information on just like, oh, well, you don't have this, you're
right
fine. When
it was just too much.
Yeah, when in reality he might. So that's something that I would have to look in like the archives or even a diary at that point.
Yeah, like a personal experience of when that happened.
Exactly. So this became pretty big for them, and they were getting impatient. This, I believe, having the danger of their jobs, just the unfairness and just the money that the company was making. Because they were making millions of dollars just in this single mine, because they're the ones who get the coal in the end, because they're selling them the coal back to them pretty much that they can sell like the nationwide. So they were making the money out of it. Ooh. Because it was all through the company. So they finally, like, the miners had enough. They were like, we are going on strike. Let's hit up the UMWA. This is the United Miners Workers Association. This was, I believe, when I was talking about in my thesis, West Virginia, this became very influential in development. But yeah, the UMWA was huge in helping these strikers out as much as they could for as long as they could, to help them pretty much get what they wanted, because a lot of them all had demands, just like here in Ludlow. So they secretly went to the UMWA, like, because if the company found out about it, they'd be like, you're done. Because they got they're crazy. They're really strict. They had mine guards keeping an eye on them all day, every day.
Serious business.
I didn't realize how crazy the mining industry was, but
I know,
man, it is.
God.
So in this time, they decided, like, secretly going to them, they're like, hey, this is what we want. Like, can you help us out? So they had 7 demands. My next topic, the strike.
Dun, dun, dun.
So there were 7 demands that were brought to the company to recognize. This is what they wanted. So the first one, I put this as my third one on accident, because I was like writing the notes, and I was like, I was looking off the article, and I was like, why is this number 3 when it should be 2? And then I was like, oh, I didn't write this right. So the number 1 is what they wanted the most, was the recognition of the union. They wanted to be part of the union because the union gives them more fair, pretty much just work.
Yeah.
In a sense that, like, they would have to follow certain guidelines to everything. And it's crazy that they weren't allowed, but that's how it was. That's how they build up this labor wars of just wanting better pay and just to be treated like humans.
Right.
They
Too much
wanna-
to ask for.
Exactly. But of course the company are greedies. They're very greedy.
Yeah.
And so that was the one thing that they wanted the most, was a recognition of the union. Number 2 was a 10% wage increase. So the miners were not being paid hourly. It was all depending by the ton of coal. So they wanted more money for what they were getting, for what they were pulling out. Because if they're not getting paid hourly, then
What's the point?
what's the point?
Yeah.
So, and they also wanted an 8-hour workday. A lot of times these workers would push so much time into extracting the coal because they wanted to make that money. And so they would be mining for like 12 plus hours a day.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and they had no limit, and they weren't getting paid for going over 8 hours because that wasn't a thing.
And it's affecting their health long run. Like,
Yeah, and they're not there with their families either. Like, they may have wives or a wife and children, but they're not going to be able to see them because they're working all day.
that's crazy.
I don't know why you would want to be a miner in this town. Like, it seems like it really sucks.
I guess if that's the only opportunity you have, but
Exactly, especially if you're an immigrant.
yeah.
This is what you have. And so we have number 4, which is payment for dead work. So they were wanting to be paid for shoring, timbering, laying tracks. So pretty much all of like just the small things that you had to do into pretty much building like the mines, like the tracks for like the carts for that are filled with coal.
Yeah.
They had to do that, but they weren't getting paid for that either.
Oh my god.
It's just like they're putting in that work, that heavy lifting.
Getting nothing for it.
Exactly. So they're like, we want to get paid for that. And that's just a demand. And I think that's fair. All
Oh
of
yeah.
these are
No, I
fair.
totally get where they're coming from.
Yeah. So, number 5 was to elect own check weighman. So they felt that they were being cheated because they had, the company had their own check weighman. So that was them weighing the coal that they brought in.
Okay.
So they felt like they were being cheated, that they weren't giving the right amount to be paid. So they felt they were being
Okay.
shorted, like the money.
Interesting. Yeah.
So they wanted to have their own, especially like have their own, like, I guess, coworker
Yeah.
to do the weigh-in for them. Of course, they didn't like that because then they're going to lose money in the end of that. Yeah.
It's a rough situation.
Yeah. So number 6, right to trade in any store, own place. So own their own place. Don't have to live in the company's houses. And then have their own doctors. As I said previously, they could not do any of that outside of the company.
So that's why the doctor would be like, you're okay.
Yeah.
So the company wouldn't have to get
a real doctor, and for them, if they have a note, or the doctor would be like, you need to stop doing this.
Damn.
So
That's wild. Okay.
Yeah, so they couldn't go see their own, and they wanted their own place because, as I'm going to talk about, like, the company owned this house. They had no ties to it.
Yeah.
And this would become very significant in the long run. And I'm guessing the company houses were, like, okay, because I didn't hear anything about them being, like, shitty, but they're also probably not the best.
Do you have to live with other people in the company, or, like, could your family move in? And
I don't think so. It didn't really describe that. It just said company houses.
Okay.
So I'm guessing that it was just
a house provided by them?
Just a house provided by them.
Okay.
But it probably wasn't upkept or anything.
Yeah.
Because it was probably like an HOA, honestly. Freaking...
Probably.
And number 7, the last one, is enforce Colorado mining laws and the abolition of guard system.
Oh.
Yeah, they wanted to abolish the mining guards because they were very extreme. They were rude. They were pretty abusive. And they just loved to harass them pretty much, and just like, pretty much like, if you ever heard of like the Stanford experiment.
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of like that, of the guards, like a lot of the mining guards were just like everyday people. And they thought that they had so much authority over these people. And it's like, no, you just got like a kind of a raise.
You just yelled at people. That's it.
Exactly. Like they're just doing their job and them yelling at them like, you gotta do this better. Like, stop doing this.
Yeah.
Stop chatting with your friend. So that's pretty much. And they got tired of that. They're like, we're being harassed by them. We don't want anything like that.
That's fair.
Yeah. But the company did not like this. They heard their demands and were like, excuse me? You don't like what we're giving you? You don't like this? And they're like, no, can you see how wrong this is? And they're like, I honestly don't know what you're talking about.
We're giving you everything you could want.
Exactly. And it's just, it's like, dude, come on.
Yeah.
So, instead of listening to the strikers' demands and just kind of compromising with them, the company went wild. They were pissed. They were throwing a tantrum like a 2-year-old. They completely evicted every single striker. So not every mining employee decided to go on this strike, but a majority of them did. And all of the majority, they're like, okay, you don't want to work for this company? You're out. You're out of here.
Yeah.
You're out of your house that we provide for you. And they're like, that was kind of like a slap to the face, like, okay. Like, and that's what they wanted. They wanted their own place so they wouldn't have to deal with that.
Right. They're like, okay, bye.
Exactly. And they knew that the company could do something like this, and that's exactly what they did. They evicted their asses, and they're like, okay, we got to figure something out. We're not going to stop.
Yeah.
These people were not giving up. Like, the strikers were not giving up so easily, no matter to what the company thought. So, they held firm. They kept going. They're like, okay, you're going to evict us? So be it. This day was on September 23rd of 1913. This would become pretty important because this would really cause, like, just a push for them to really go further into their strike.
Mm-hmm.
Now, families were moved out of their company homes, and they went to, luckily, the UMWA started to give them tents to live in. And the cool part is they created their own little, like, colony, like, little tent colony.
Oh.
To where they all lived in. Like, it still sucked because they all lived in tents.
Yeah.
But, like, it was nice for the association to give them the tents to help them out. Be like, hey, we're here for you as much as we can. Here's some tents that you all can live in. Just imagine 1,200 people.
That's crazy.
Living in these tents. And the colonies of where they had them located were between a canyon where a lot of traffic flows. And so this would become helpful for them to keep out a lot of mine guards that were trying to come in and whatnot. So
yeah,
it got intense. So there was about 200 tents located. That's quite a bit of tents. And then you have, like, a man, a wife, and then, like, maybe 2 to 3 children.
Dang.
And just
oh yeah,
an
wow.
average little tent.
A little tiny tent.
A little tiny tent.
That is intense.
So, next one. The next move.
Dun, 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 dun.
So, they continued to go onto their strike, kind of vocally expressing how to, like, please accept our demand. Like, this is what we want. Company was like, fuck you. No.
Nah.
We're bringing in strike breakers.
Yeah.
This would get pretty crazy and pretty violent. The strike breakers, they don't care. They will do anything that they want. The most of them were pretty locals. They immediately took to violence.
Ooh, dang.
Yeah. So they would take high-powered searchlights and would play them constantly throughout the camp, just keeping everybody awake. They were beating up people, like, in the camps, because what they wanted was they were acting out in violence because they wanted the strikers to respond violently, so they could be like, oh, they're being violent. We need to bring.
God.
We got to put martial law on here because martial law is freaking stupid as hell. But they thought it was the greatest thing that they needed because they wanted to have the government involved.
Of course.
Of course.
Jesus.
Yeah. So, and then, Some were even just, like, giving warning shots of just spraying, like, machine guns, like, throughout it. And this would become pretty important, too. But, yeah, they were, like, pretty much giving them warnings, like, oh, you got to stop this. They were being very violent. And, of course, the strikers were just being like, what the hell are you doing? Like, we're just trying to get, like, these demands met so we can live a life. But, like, these strike breakers were violent people who just wanted it to happen. Who just wanted to be violent for these poor people.
Dang.
So, with assistance from Governor Ammons here in Colorado, on October 1913, martial law was brought onto the strike zone by the National Guard. So, finally, the company was, like, hitting up Ammons and was like, hey, this has, like, been going on for about 10 days now. Like, they're not letting up. They're just, we think they're going to end up being violent. Like, we need your help. Like, pretty much like a...
Please help.
Like,
Please
a little
help.
violin, little tiny baby violin. Like, feel bad for me. And, of course, like, politicians, being politicians, they're like,
Classic.
we're going to help you out because you're rich like me. So, here we go. We're going to bring in martial law. And if you've ever heard of martial law, it's pretty much strict rules that go on. Like, I believe DC was under martial law in January, wasn't it?
Probably. I think so.
Yeah, when
That
people
sounds
got
right.
into the Capitol.
When not all that craziness was happening.
Yeah, because they put restrictions on how late you could be out, curfew.
Yeah. Yep, that was martial law.
Yeah, and so they pretty much tell you what to do. So, there was, when martial law was first enacted, there were 695 enlisted men. So there was about 397 officers. This number did not stay this high because this went on for like a year of just like this martial law. Mm-hmm. And so the numbers of like officers just like dropped tremendously. They're like, whatever.
Like, yeah, I'm close enough.
Yeah, they're like, this is getting ridiculous because all they're doing is just like with their little picket fence, like their little pickets being like, hey, we want better pay. Like, we want to be part of the union.
And they're all just like, okay.
Yeah, they're like, well, this is all they're wanting. Like, why are we here? So, like, those numbers dropped a lot. And a lot of, like, the officers who were part of just, like, scared me. That were part of just the crew of, like, the officers and stuff like that were just mining guards.
Oh, okay.
At that part, a lot of them were, because a lot of, like, the military, they're like, we have better stuff to do. We're in the middle of World War I, almost. Yeah. Almost. And they're like, there's a war brewing. We don't know what's going on. Like, this is getting serious. So they're like, we have other stuff to worry about. So, this cost a lot of money. This pretty much bankrupted the state of having martial law. And this did not make anybody happy. This pissed off the governor, and this pissed off the president. So, the militia companies still remained. And the strike would continue until it escalated. So, the massacre. So, April 20th, 1914, 9 o'clock a.m., the first shot was fired in the tent colony. It is not known who set the first shot. Who shot the first?
What year is it again?
1914.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So this was a whole, like, 6 or 7 months later that the strike was going on.
Yeah.
It was a while. This was early spring, so the tent colony had to go through winter here in Colorado. Luckily, it's more in the southern part, so I feel like
not as bad, but
it could still be depending on Colorado's weird.
You never know.
You never know. But yeah, so we don't know who shot the first shot or who fired the first shot. But I honestly think it was the militia.
Oh, for sure.
I would not be surprised. That's just my opinion. So, those miners, there were several miners who were armed with guns because, like, you got to protect yourself and your family.
Right.
And a lot of them, they immediately took to positions in foxholes. So they would bury a giant kind of, if you don't know what a foxhole is, it is like a giant dirt hole, pretty much. And they use that World War I, World War II. It's huge that they used. It's not as deep as a trench, but it's like a little kind of hide a hole that you stay in.
Yeah, just to hide real quick.
Yeah, and they did that and started shooting fire, like gunshots to the militia to distract from the families that are in the colonies to get out, pretty much.
Yeah.
Because they were just shooting. And when that first shot went off, it then led to chaos. Like, there was just mass shots of gunfire going off.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, in the tent colony. Like,
wow.
It was chaotic. And this continued all day long. Like, shots being fired. It was like a battle zone. It was crazy. And just looking at the pictures of it, like, you could just show them and they could be like, oh, that seems like it was like in a war or something. But because it looked like on fire, a bunch of stuff was burned.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, that was in a tent colony.
That's
in a
wild.
mining town. Like, yeah, here in Colorado. Like, it's wild. And if you go to the town now, there's just nothing there except the memory of it. Because it looks nothing like it did, of course, because that was like over 100 years ago.
Long ass time ago.
I know. So, pretty much, yeah, the militia came in and just laid out on the company with machine guns and rifle fire. It was pretty bad. So there was about 177 militia and 2 machine guns. So you have to think machine guns are pretty gnarly.
Yeah.
And especially with the miners probably only had just like a single rifle.
Yeah.
They probably didn't have like
wild.
the extreme. Yeah, because the militia had more on them is because they probably just had like hunting rifles. The miners, they didn't have like what the militia had because they were prepping for this. And there's even just like incentive that they were, or just research that like, oh, they were planning this for days to have this happen, that they were planning, because I believe this was on Greek Easter that this occurred. So I was like, man.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I'm like, that sucks. So the fatality is estimated to 25 within the first 7-day period. There was about 20 of them on the first day that died, and it was mostly children, unfortunately.
That's so sad.
Yeah. So there was about 3 militia who passed. There was just one passerby. He just was like, hey guys, and then he got shot.
Oh no.
Yeah, he was
Not
just
being
like,
that guy.
Yeah, he was just probably passing through, and then he got shot in the crossfire because it literally was like a battle zone going on. Like, these people were...
He probably shouldn't have crossed, but
No.
we're not going to blame the victim.
Yeah. And then 12 children died.
Wow.
As well, yeah. So, one story that I think the most children died was in a tent. This family, I believe it was a classroom. It was two women, and then I believe it was about 5 to 7 children, from what I remember.
Yeah.
And they dug, like, they were in their tent, and they dug a pit to like protect themselves from the gunfire. While the entire colony was on fire, and that tent caught on fire pretty much, and they were trying to put it out, but all but 2 of them died of suffocation.
Oh,
so
no.
I believe the ones that made it were Mary Petrucci and Alcorita Pedregon.
Jeez.
Yeah, so all of the children, I believe, died in that pit. Yeah.
That's so sad.
Yeah, it was brutal. So the next 10 days. And that was just in the first day.
I thought you wrote next 2 days, but you only put TO. And I was like, oh boy.
Oh.
And now I see that it's a 1 and a 0.
So yeah, this lasted pretty long. Like, it would be, I think the end of just the hostility was over a year later that they finally put a stop. Like, the main stop was like in May, but it wasn't until like December.
Yeah.
So the news of Ludlow spread like wildfire throughout the United States. People were shocked that the Rockefeller Company of their coal and fuel just like it escalated into this. They were just like, whoa, we had no idea that this was going on, or that it led to this. Like, they had no idea that violence would become such a huge thing. And this became a really big story in the Cold Wars, because that was going on all throughout the U.S. in this time period around the 1914 and so on, up until like the 30s. Like, the Cold Wars were so significant because these miners wanted better pay and wanted better labor. And it became not only just in the mines, but in pretty much every industry. Just even in like departments and stuff, they wanted to be part of the union. Ruby's going crazy.
She was just sleeping 4 seconds ago.
She's crazy.
That's crazy though.
Yeah. So the strikers, they knew that they had to get wild. They had to be aggressive back, because if they were going to just kind of sit by like they had during like the strike and the mine guards being aggressive or abusive, they're like, okay, we got to go big too. So the strikers would attack and destroy the mines. This was really sad because there were a good chunk of miners who still stayed, and they were hiring new miners to do it. And they were just trying to do their job. Yeah. And they couldn't, because they had the strikers just like ruining everything for them. So they weren't making any money in the end either, because they kept having the mines destroyed and they had to keep rebuilding them. Yeah. So they kind of got the shit end of the stick too.
It sucks.
Yeah. But they didn't want to be part of it. And that's what they wanted to do. So they even fought and pitched battles with the militia within the 10 days as well. Like, it was just constant that they would have just like a little battle going on, them shooting each other back and forth, and just like in the foxholes and whatnot. Like, there was just fire everywhere. It was crazy. And then many women and children had to dodge bullets, and several of them, to escape, they had to go somewhere else. There was no way that Ludlow was safe, and a lot of them who were wounded had to go that 16-mile trek to Trinidad.
Oh my God.
Luckily it was 16 miles and not like 100 and something.
60 miles.
Yeah. But still 16 miles
though.
To walk with wounds.
Yeah, no, that's not easy.
And to get help. Yeah, it was not fun, because they even had to, like, a lot of them ended up having to escape there because they didn't know what else to do, and like either their significant other were dead, or they knew that they didn't want to lose their lives or their children's. They're like, it's not worth it anymore.
Dang.
So a lot of them fled to Trinidad.
Wow.
Who weren't fighting. And I'm guessing a lot of the men are who did the fighting. I don't recall any women. There could be, if I did further research into it later on, that I'm sure some women probably fought alongside their significant others.
I'm sure, yeah.
Yeah. So, by the 17th day of fighting, it was seized by the federal intervention, when the federal intervention was asked to step in. So, we had martial law, but then it was just like, we need troops out here.
It took 17 days for that?
Yeah, for them to finally get it. And I believe at this time, who was the president at this time? 1914.
Oh my God, I don't know.
Let me look it up, because I don't think it was Woodrow Wilson.
It was one that isn't popular, I think.
Oh God, I can't remember. I don't know.
I'm good with like the 40s and on, but like early 1900s.
It was Woodrow Wilson.
Oh my God, look at you go.
Oh my, I remember. So yeah, Woodrow Wilson was pissed. He was like, this shouldn't have escalated to this point. We shouldn't have had a massacre of people because of this company and just the labor. Yeah. The labor war. He was not happy about it. Jeez. He was like, we need this finished. Uh-huh. Pretty much. So after 17 days, when they heard that they were trying to get the federal intervention into it to get like actual troops out, they're like, okay, we'll calm down, but like, we'll stop this battling with each other, but like, we're still gonna like stay here and strike. Yeah. They're like, okay, whatever, but just stop this. And they're like, fine, whatever. So I'm sure there could have been more death but from what they counted was 25.
Wow.
Especially in the first, like,
I'm
7
sure there's
days.
a lot more
I think,
than that.
yeah, I think in the later on days, it was pretty much just back and forth of just, like, shooting at each other. I don't know if any, like, I'm sure some got hit, but I don't think it was, like, fatal wounds.
Yeah.
But, so the aftermath. So the strike did not stop there. It continued on for another 7 months.
Jesus.
Yeah, so, and then they said that it stopped. I read that it stopped in May 1914, but for it to actually just, like, disperse finally wasn't until December of 1914 when martial law was finally ended. So by May, they're like, okay, I guess we're done, but martial law stayed just to make sure that they weren't doing anything more sneaky or whatnot. So, but the sad thing is that they didn't win their demands. The company was like, we're keeping our foot down on this. Like, no. So they lost that fight. But this was actually beneficial because it got national recognition.
Yeah.
And so this would cause huge uproars of just wanting that unionized company. They want to be unionized. They're like, this is what we want. This is our demands. It became huge because this massacre was just shocking to people because they had no idea that something like this could happen.
Uh-huh.
They were just like, we had no idea that this company, like this small mining town,
Right.
could lead to this chaos.
It's insane.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure the news being the news, as always, just made
Blew
it
it out of proportion.
Exactly. Like, it was rough, but they probably made it seem like there was millions of people dying.
Yes.
But even 25 lives lost, like, it's still sad, but it's sad that it came to that point.
Uh-huh.
That aggression and violence like that had to ensue because a company couldn't give these individuals proper care on a job.
That's horrible.
Yeah. So, that was the Ludlow Massacre.
My goodness gracious.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that one just because it's so sad that they didn't win what they wanted, but I think they moved on from there. They're like, okay. Eventually, I do believe they did have to tie into the union because I believe there was an act that was initiated that those places had to be unionized.
Uh-huh.
If you didn't, no one's going to work for you. No one wants to work for a non-union.
Right.
Because then they can just screw you over. So.
Dang, I did not know that much about it, so that was really fascinating, but really sad.
I recommend people look into it because the pictures are really crazy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to think what I learned, but I'm like, that's a lot.
It is a lot. I learned that freaking taking your stance, go for it.
Right.
Take it. Like, they did it. They did the thing.
Fight for what you believe in.
Honestly, because they sure did.
They did.
But I think after a while, I'd be like, is this really worth it? Because...
Yeah, I get where they'd want to be like, all right, we're just going to move on.
Yeah. And I think most of them did because who wants to live in a tent for like 2+ years? But
no,
you gotta
thank
think,
you. Not in the winter.
Yeah, a lot of them are minorities and immigrants, so I believe those wanted to stay because they didn't know what else to do.
It's better than nothing.
But that's how mining companies did that, is that they would trick these immigrants into working for them because they knew that they wouldn't want to work. They couldn't work anywhere else. And so they could do stuff like that. Which is really unfortunate.
World is so sad.
It is, but it's a little bit better now, but not by much.
Yeah, no.
But, so, thank you for joining us today. We appreciate it.
Yeah, we do.
Where can you find us?
I'm always waiting for the question. You can find us on Instagram and Facebook at Historia the Podcast, Twitter at Historia the Pod 1, and at Gmail with... I'm trying to think of how to word that. Historia the Podcast at gmail.com.
Yay!
Send in your comments, stories, ideas, pet pictures.
I'll send you pictures of mine.
And guys, stay tuned for next week, because next week's gonna be wild.
Oh, it is.
It's Jamie's birthday episode. So stay tuned.
Yay. It's going to be crazy. I'm excited.
Yes, me too. All right, guys. Have a great day, week, month.
Week. Yes. Weekend.
Stay safe out there.
Oh, yes. If you're in California,
stay away from the fire.
Stay away from the fire. If you're anywhere else,
stay
be smart.
away from the fire, too.
Making choices.
Yep.
All
right. Bye.
Bye.